From one of America's most frozen states, Iowa, it's Wapiti Live. To serve the herd, I'm your host, Dan Erickson, and today I want to talk about your website hosting and why it's probably time to upgrade. So, yeah, website hosting. Every business, that's what they do. They think about their website hosting. No. The truth is most businesses don't spend the time. They spin up a website, they hire some designer, maybe even some kid out of high school to put together a website, and they may even pay a high-end company to do a website, and then they just accept wherever that website is dropped on the internet. Now, to kind of give a little backlog here to explain why hosting should even matter, because if you're watching this and you don't know, you're probably ready to turn it off. Or if you're listening, podcast, video, all that fun. If you don't understand the side of the reason why hosting should matter, I'm going to give you a real quick synopsis here, and then we're going to get into details. If you think of your house and you think of your property, if you think of you've got multiple pieces, right? You have your address, which is 123 Any Street, New York. Then you've got your actual home, which is the property, or not the property, I'm sorry, which is the actual structure, the building that you live in. And then you have your property, which is the piece of land that structure is sitting on. Now, let's say that you could actually put your address wherever you wanted to, because on the internet, that's how your web address works. It points to wherever you tell it. In real life, your address is literally that piece of property is tied to the address. But let's say you can put that wherever you want to. So you get 123 Any Street, and you find a neighborhood that you just love the neighborhood. You move into that neighborhood and you build a junky house. That would be like having really good web hosting and putting a really bad website on it. Like, why would you do that? Well, there are some reasons. Now, let's reverse that scenario. Let's say that you get the perfect house, and the developer and the builder and the whole team is like, we just made you a beautiful home. Here's a slum that you can set it in. It's only, your property taxes are going to be $50 yearly. So it's really cheap. It's worth it because you're going to save money. Well, I don't know where you live watching this, and maybe $50 annually for property taxes is normal. I can tell you the places that I've lived, we're talking multiple thousands a year in property taxes. And so if I found a spot that was $50 a year, I can guarantee you it's that because nobody wants to be there. I don't even think that's possible, to be honest. But the exaggeration is there to show you why it actually does matter to put your website on, these cheap $2, $3, $4, $5 a month hosting plans. And we're going to get into more details about this, but that's really the high level. Is if you have something that represents your business, why are you tossing it on the cheapest thing you can find? This is an important thing, and it's amazing how many larger companies have really poor website experiences because they tossed it on a cheap hosting company. So let me get my notes up here. Let's kind of delve into this, right? So first off, you've got cheap hosting. Let's talk about this cheap hosting that I'm talking about. I mean, to me, any hosting plan that's less than $20 a month is cheap hosting. There are probably exceptions, and I definitely don't want to create a fence and say you can't find good hosting for $19 a month. But the reality is if they're spending the money to get the right server, to get the right solutions, even at an economy of scale, um, if you're dealing with a hosting company directly, they're not making enough money to make it worth their while unless they're over $20 a month. So you may say, well, how does GoDaddy give me $5 a month hosting? Or how does, what's the other big one? HostGator. There's a bunch of these that are inexpensive hosting. And then they claim a lot. They give you unlimited, right? You get unlimited storage, unlimited visitors, unlimited. But the truth is it's not. You're on a shared computer with many other people. And that computer may have 2 terabytes, 10 terabytes of hard drive space, which sounds like a lot. But then you stuff 100 clients on this, and all of them think they have unlimited, and they just start dumping huge photos on for their website. Maybe even some files, some music, and some videos. And next thing you know, that 10 terabytes is filled up. So there is no truly possible way that a company can make money off of a few bucks a month giving you unlimited storage. And if you ever read their disclaimers, they actually tell you how it's not really unlimited. Within normal use for most people, it's probably unlimited, but there's always that caveat. Next is you're dealing with shared hosting in these regards. That means you have a computer with multiple people on this computer, multiple websites. If website A has a big launch and their website gets bombarded, websites B through Z on that same server will all experience a sluggish, slowed down experience because website A is sapping the resources of the server. Now, once in a while, most business people don't seem to care about that. I feel they should, but just my experience are like, yeah, if it slows down once in a while, it's okay. But the reality is a couple things. First off, let's scale this up to Amazon, and I've talked about this in an old podcast, a couple of years back. But Amazon has worked it out to however many hundreds of millions they lose for every extra second it takes their website to load. There's a reason why Google and Amazon have very clean, empty looking sites that are just filled with the content. And that's because they've realized that the faster the site loads, the more money they can make. Now, it's sort of changing. Amazon is introducing more visual elements, but that's more because technology is advancing to where they can offer heavier elements at very light weights, which basically means that it still loads very quickly. That said, if Amazon, once again, this is a bit of an over over comparison, I guess, because Amazon's huge. But if Amazon was on a shared hosting, a shared hosting plan, no other website on that plan would even load because Amazon would just take all the resources. Now, the truth is Amazon's got multiple servers and they've got a pretty complex setup. But let's simplify that down. I have a buddy of mine who has a business site, and he was on a shared hosting plan because he thought he got a nicer shared hosting plan. It was still like $6 a month. Um, Anyhow, it was definitely a cheap plan, but it was loading his site pretty decently. And apparently, the people he was sharing resources with weren't using those resources. But then he actually had an article that he had written that received a ton of attention. Next thing you know, not only did his server slow down, but the hosting company actually shut his site off and said that he needed to contact them. Well, when your content's going gangbusters, the last thing you want is your site to get shut down so that you have to go figure out what's going on. You want people to be able to see it. You want a server that can scale with you. Shared hosting in and of itself is not bad. I do shared hosting. I also do custom servers. The point I'm making is that with these lesser cheap hosting companies, your shared hosting is the bottom of the barrel because the only way these guys are going to make money, first off, is in bulk. So you're not getting any type of personalized attention. Nobody's paying attention to your site. It is all automated. But they're also crowding as many people onto a server as they possibly can while telling you have unlimited resources and unlimited storage and all these things, and then caveat in their small print. So it's just worth knowing that. Next, you're responsible for your own security. When I first started Wapiti, when it was called Brand Shouter back in the day, we accepted another agency's server. At the time, we thought, this would be a good way to get us growing. We weren't at all of size. And we started working with this other agency, and we convinced them to let us host their websites. So we pulled over about 75% of sites built on Joomla and 25% of sites built on WordPress, give or take. I'm kind of rounding numbers here. Every single one of the Joomla sites were on an outdated installation that hadn't been managed, and every single one of them were hacked. Now, to push that even forward, we put that on a server with our clients. We didn't even deal with Joomla. We were just trying to find ways to make money to get going. And so all of our clients hadn't been properly siloed because we didn't know what we were doing well enough at the time. This is many years ago. And those hacked sites spread across the server, and our entire server was basically hacked. Now, we cleaned it up. We repaired things with our clients. We approached this other agency and said, hey, we just brought in your stuff. Everything's hacked. All of your sites. Now your WordPress sites are too. And that's all because I just got an interesting notification. My apologies. That's all because the site wasn't managed properly. And we're going to talk about managed hosting after a while. But specifically, these low-end hosts don't even care. As a matter of fact, they had some blocks kind of built into the server that allowed the sites to be hacked so that they wouldn't receive the negative repercussions of it, but that the client still had a hacked website that was actually sending out some pretty nasty emails. And this was a nonprofit that you wouldn't expect to see nasty emails coming from. So that's one thing too with this cheap hosting is they just don't care about security unless it negatively affects them. And that hence the setup that they had. Next is your backups. You're generally responsible for your own. As a matter of fact, most of these, and I do want to paint a fairly broad stroke, most, not all, don't even offer backups as part of that inexpensive plan. If you want to back up, you have to install like a WordPress plugin and connect it over to some other storage of your own, or you have to manually go in and export your site. All things that the average person does not do or want to do or even want to know how to do. The ones that do offer backups offer them as a secondary plan that is often far more expensive than your hosting, puts you up towards the $20 a month deal. And that's to then cover the cost of hosting your backups, which is storage space that they have to pay for. So yeah, with that cheap hosting plan, you're not even going to get backups. You have to figure that out. And that makes you think, if you're getting unlimited space, how come you can't just back up to your unlimited space? Well, there's security reasons for that, but there's also stability reasons, and there's the fact that it's not truly unlimited. And lastly, if your site does get hacked, you have to pay, and then this is true of any hosting company really, is you have to pay to get your hacked site fixed and restored. So for a company that doesn't care about you getting hacked, but then they'll charge you when you do get hacked, makes sense because they're only charging you a few bucks a month. But none of that helps you. None of that helps your business. And it is literally the poorest experience that a visitor can have going online. Okay, so let's move into the next step, right? We have that cheap hosting that we just covered. Now we're going to talk about your more higher end hosts. Within the WordPress space, some of them are known as like Kinsta, WP Engine. Then you've got the really crazy high end Pagely, which I even have thoughts on that. But you've got these hosting companies that have become synonymous with really good WordPress hosting. And it is because a lot of them have changed the industry. It was always, how cheap can I get my hosting? As things were kind of moving along. And then especially within the WordPress ecosystem, because WordPress is a free platform. It's not free to get it looking good, but it's a free platform. A lot of people would always be looking for how little can they spend. And WP Engine specifically came along and really changed that narrative and showed you why you should want to spend more. So let's talk about these. These range, 20-ish to, if you're going with Pagely, you could be talking thousands a month, depending on what type of a site and what you're going with. And I do want to be clear, my hosting is also fits this higher end hosting, but I actually fit further down the chain as we get into new subjects and where Wapity's hosting differs from these. But with the higher end, first off, you're provided more server resources. There's something called PHP workers. The average user, once again, doesn't care, doesn't know. But really, it's how many simultaneous processes can run at the same time. So for example, if you had 10 people hit your site and they start adding things to their shopping cart, Each one of those things is a process. And with cheap hosting, you're often limited to a couple, maybe three. And so if you had five people trying to buy your product, two of them will be shut out, or will be slowed way down, is probably a better way to say that, while the others are finishing their deal. And you don't want that as a business. You want to be able to have 100 people come through and order at the same time. You only are, if you do things the right way, you should only be constrained by the size of the computer running your website. And we'll get to that. So higher end hosting offers more. A lot of them offer 5 to 10. Some of them offer unlimited. Once again, restrained by the computer hosting your website. But that's one reason that's one of the things you get when you pay more. Next is, even in a shared hosting environment, your site is further siloed from other websites. So as I mentioned earlier in the cheap hosting, your site is siloed. If you get hacked, they keep your site kind of to itself. But within the resource usage, the resources are often not siloed, and you're often competing for resources with other sites. Once again, there's anybody watching this who knows something, you're going to find small holes. But the reality is, what I'm saying is generally true. And for the business owner, you don't have time to try to figure out where the small holes are, and you just need the right solution. So with this, the higher end hosting tends to silo your actual resources. They tell you get X amount of virtual processors, you get X amount of memory, X amount of hard drive space, and they deliver that. Now, I'm sure there's also exceptions in the negative way on that as well, but that's generally what you get. You also tend to get better support with the cheaper hosts. You can. I should turn on some notification silences. I don't know if those the little noise came through for that, but got a little Slack message here. Just threw my mind off here. You with the cheaper hosts, you tend to be able to reach out to them, and you get a little chat. And sometimes they're quick, and sometimes they're pretty good. And other times, I've had to wait over an hour for cheap hosting in the past, like migrating a site over, and there's a problem, and I'm doing it for a new client, and next thing I know, I'm in a virtual chat, and I'm on hold for like an hour. And I start working on another project, and by the time I realize that, hey, maybe they're back, I look and they'd already asked if I was there, waited 2 minutes, and then hung up on me. It's like, I waited an hour for you, but you gave me 2 minutes to respond. Generally speaking, your cheap hosting has poor support compared to the higher end hosting, which they usually have people who respond pretty quickly. In really high usage situations, you're talking maybe a 10 or 20 minute wait. But they also have it built into a ticketing system. So if you were missed, you would then receive a ticket, and you could continue correspondence via email. They also tend to offer phone support, which I really like, because if I'm trying to do something that's just not happening, I don't want to sit and wait for someone in chat. I want to actually talk to somebody and get an answer right away. I know in this high tech world, it's nuts for me to say I like phone support, but I do. Next is the security. They offer better security. They care about security, not just for their business, but for your site, because how your site runs on a higher end host reflects on that hosting company itself. And they want things to reflect on them well. Just like in the cheap hosting, they want to look good, but they only want to look good in that their sites aren't, sending off a bunch of raunchy emails. But they could care less about the site. In the higher end hosting case, they want the site to also run fast, because that's what they're advertising. That's what they're saying, is that they offer a superior hosting experience. So with that, they offer a lot of baked in security. Some of them provide security plugins to add to your WordPress install if you're on WordPress. But by and large, it's better security. They also offer better backup solutions. A lot of them, like I used to be a WP Engine customer before I decided to do my own. And as a WP Engine customer, they offer a daily backup by default. You don't have to really do much, and you can restore it pretty quickly. It's pretty awesome. And along with that, they also offer a staging environment, which is literally a second spot. So you can take your existing site, move it over to this other staging site, and you can edit the site and make changes all you want, and the live site isn't showing those. And then when you're happy with it, you push the new site live. And that's pretty standard amongst most of the higher end hosting. So you're basically getting 2 server spaces for the price of 1, sort of. Not quite that cut and dry, but that's a pretty quick way to describe that. Okay, so we've covered cheap hosting, we covered high-end hosting. Now I want to talk about managed WordPress hosting, specifically managed WordPress, because this is the realm we start to get into what I offer. So take that high-end hosting we just talked about, all those benefits you get over cheap hosting. Now slap on it proactive management, slap on it a team that pays attention to the details and will make sure your backups are running, and will even back them up into multiple places. You won't be limited by daily backups. For example, you can actually back up hourly and do it in an incremental way, so you're not paying ridiculous costs. And yes, some of the higher end hosting that doesn't do managed WordPress also offers that. But a lot of them leave it in your court. And if you don't do it right, well, that's on you. With the managed hosting, they actually ensure everything's running well. Now, this is starting to get to where Wapiti offers our hosting. Here's where ours differs. So just to kind of further clarify that, the end result of managed WordPress hosting is you have a team available to do all the server management stuff and to ensure that it's running at all times. And they get alerts if it's not, and they proactively try to fix it. They alert you. It's in their hands. As a matter of fact, half the time you don't want them to alert you. You just want them to take care of it. You want to run your business. You don't want to think about the hosting of your website. It's hard enough to think about your website, which is a digital storefront, but the hosting of it feels like a step too far for most business owners. So here's where Wapiti differs. We do the managed WordPress hosting as well, but we also add in other services because we want to ensure our clients have the best possible experience. So first off, we keep plugins up to date. And I want to say within reason. We're not going to pay for a premium plugin for your business if you're just paying us for monthly hosting. That said, if you provide us a key and you pay for that plugin, or you pay us to pay for that plugin, we will keep that plugin up to date. It's a double-edged sword, I'm not going to lie. Plugins are done by other people, and there are times when code updates can break your site. It's rare, but not super rare. We have maybe 1-2 sites break a year because a plugin updated and just did something stupid. We have a couple plugins that are repeat offenders, unfortunately. That said, we also proactively monitor. We actually have human beings go through a few sites every week just to make sure that we're not missing anything. And if you, as a client, find something's broken, all you have to do is reach out to us and we fix it, because that's part of what we offer with this service. And the reason why this is important, you're going to be like, well, why do I care about a plugin being up to date? If it's functioning, leave it alone. Well, most plugin updates come with security features in tow. So yeah, a lot of plugins are updated for security purposes. And so if you aren't keeping your plugins up to date, your site is susceptible to being hacked, even if the server is doing everything possible to stop. Now, the reality is, everything being perfect, every website's susceptible to being hacked. But the harder you make it, the less likely that's going to be. And so with us, it's not just server security, it's not just website security, it's also proactively getting in front of security holes. The majority of WordPress websites that are hacked are done so in an automatic manner through a known exploit, not through something new that nobody's discovered, and all of a sudden all the sites are getting hacked. And the reason is because the majority of people don't keep their plugins up to date. And so for us, that's an important piece of what we do. Now, we also, as mentioned before, we also do proactively monitor your site, but we also proactively monitor the resources. If your site starts to run low on resources, we reach out to you and say, hey, look, it's going to cost a little more, but you're filled up. So you got 2 options. If your disk space is filled up, maybe you can go through and remove some stuff you're not using. If your website's just so popular that you're using the resources, we need to upgrade you. It's the only option, and it's a good option. It means your website's succeeding. And we actually pay attention to this and we let you know and we work it out with you and we find the right solution for you. A lot of these others may just shoot you a quick email saying, hey, you're at 95% usage, upgrade now. Well, sometimes that's not necessary. Sometimes you need to be told to go back in and remove things you're not using that are just sapping space. So we work with that. We also keep multiple backups. One of the things that I do like about, for example, WP Engine stuff is they do have a nice automated backup system. That said, we've taken it a step further. And maybe this has changed. I don't want to misrepresent WP Engine, but when I was using them, it was a daily backup. Well, we offer hourly backups, incremental, so it's not like we're getting full sites every hour, but we keep hourly backups for a day, we keep daily backups for a week, and then we keep weekly backups for a month. And so if your site needs to revert to a point in time previous to where it currently is, it is an insta click, more or less. It takes it takes us some time to get in there and click it, but literally within 5 minutes, your site will be back to that point. Furthermore, because those are all on server backups, we also provide an off server backup system, and we provide a off server backup, or so off site server backup. So with that, you actually have a 3-tiered backup: one stored on the server, one stored on a file system such as Dropbox or Google Drive, and one stored on a whole nother server elsewhere. So we have that whole chain connected. If there's a point of failure in, we can handle 2 major points of failure and you're still fine. The likelihood of 3 is pretty low, and we do test those to ensure that the backups are legitimately happening. So we do everything we can to mitigate a disaster. You're always welcome to install your own plugins and do even more if that makes you happy, but we do a lot for you. Lastly, is our servers are optimized for e-commerce just off the get-go. Going back to when I was talking about the cheap hosting, I mentioned PHP workers and how you only get a couple at the most, sometimes just one with these cheap hosts. With our hosting, you get, and I use quotes for unlimited PHP workers, because you're not limited by us on the amount of workers, you're limited by the resources your server has. And if you need to upgrade, then that will also expand that. So I want to clarify, it's not an infinite amount. It technically is, but your server is going to limit you. So with that though, we offer all the PHP workers necessary to ensure that that customer can buy your product every single time, no matter how busy your website is. We also have our servers enhanced specifically for WooCommerce. Now, there's a lot of other e-commerce platforms and we work with them, but WooCommerce is the most demanding for WordPress. And if our servers can make WooCommerce hum, we can make all those other systems hum. And so with that, our servers are just set up for a burgeoning e-commerce business. They're also set up for a really awesome brochure site, one that doesn't change dynamically. It is going to just snap through the pages just like that. And that's why it matters. So you're looking at multiple tiers here, right? You've got cheap hosting, $5-6. You've got higher end hosting, 20 to maybe $50. Then you've got your managed hosting, which depending on the company, you're talking $100+. With us, our base managed hosting plan starts at $99. So basically $100. And then as you need to grow your server, we will walk you through that. We will manually upgrade that server for you and just charge you the cost difference. And so there's no reason not to put your website on something that's going to handle your business. As a bonus, we also provide a white glove service where if you want an image change, you want text change, you even want little layout changes, we can set up a kind of monthly retainer of sorts, but more or less like a monthly agreement where you just reach out to our team and we'll just take care of them. We didn't have to build the website. We'll still get it figured out for you. So with that, we do offer that as a separate plan. I didn't want to package that in just because it is separate, but a lot of these other companies don't do that. And they just want to stick with hosting only. And because we are WordPress specialists and we build in WordPress, we also are willing to take on other projects as well. So let's conclude this. Let's conclude this podcast. Cheap hosting, honestly, is a no. I cannot think of a single instance where cheap hosting is worth it. Um, it's just not. You may get lucky and have one that loads your site fast, but that's just a matter of time before that changes and you get another host on there that another company hosting on there that just saps your resources. Furthermore, I mean, maybe in the most basic of brochure sites, you might get usability, but you're also not getting a great server because they're getting the cheapest of everything so they can make it cheap for you. And what that means is that the response time when people load your web page will be slow. The response time moving from page to page will be slow, even if everything else is perfect. So ultimately, cheap hosting, stay away. Higher end hosting is where you need to go. So then you need to ask yourself, do I want to be responsible for managing the server, my backups? Do I want to be responsible for, if the site gets hacked, for fixing it or paying somebody a lot of money an hour to fix it? Do I want to keep my plugins up to date? Do I want to mess with the functionality of the site on a day-to-day basis, or do I want to leave that to an expert team? And that's really where it comes into play. From a purely hosting standpoint, I like to think that Wapiti has a better host than most of these higher end hosting companies. I fully believe it does, but I can also understand that to the average business person, some of the bonus features that I would offer, some of the things that makes me know I have a better product, may not even apply. And I can admit that. That said, that's why I don't typically just sell the host. I also sell the managed side because I do know there are services on the managed side that are extremely valuable to a business person and valuable enough to where spending $100 or more a month because you don't have to pay somebody in house, you don't have to know about it, is well worth that money. And that's where I would like to recommend, if this sounds like something you might be interested in, that you reach out to Wapiti. We you don't have to have had your site built with us. We won't even pitch you on a new site unless you want us to. But we will talk to you about how we can make your hosting experience better and make your site run better. And if the site's already hacked, we can help you dehack it. We can help you get it fixed and get the hacked stuff removed and get you on a more secure server and keep your site up to date. And if there's some code in there that we can't keep up to date, that is the reason for the hack, we'll bring it to your attention. And we'll say, listen, we have to upgrade this. We have to figure out what to do. Either you need to buy the new version of the plugin or we need to do some time in replacing it with a better product. Either case, you won't be left out in the cold only to find out your site's hacked. So with that, I do want to encourage you to contact us if this sounds like something that you could use. By and large, though, it's ultra important you get off cheap hosting. And I don't even understand how to stress that more. I realize that probably 90%, 95% of people hosting websites are on free or cheap hosting. The free is a whole nother thing I didn't even touch on. That needs to change. The internet will be better. Your business will be better. Your clients will appreciate you more when you offer a better online experience. So hopefully you enjoyed this. I'm going to keep serving the herd.